SCP-8190. This article begins with a notice from the Emergent Threat Tactical Response Authority, which reads, "This document exists in its unmodified original state as part of an ongoing investigation. If you'd like to request a copy of this record, ID 08-8190-24, please complete the Form SR-01 and submit it for review of the Site-19 Department of National Division's current Director of Operations." After this, we are then presented with a message from one Marissa Norwood, the Site-19 Director, which reads, "Just submitted a ticket to that about that odd ETTRA message popping up every time I try to access documentation for SCP-8190. Not sure what the issue is. I've been Containment Director for Site-19 for over 20 years, and this is the first time anybody has told me to manually submit an access request, let alone in a hard copy. Normally, I just assume L5 classification and forget about it, but there is no listed clearance level and I see no records of an ETTRA investigation into this document on my end. I'm pretty sure I've never had a Department of Notional I'm pretty sure I've never heard of a Department of Notional Divisions either. Curious if this is some sort of bug or if I'm just out of the loop. So please send me an SR-01 request sheet at your earliest convenience, and check the Department directory. You have to see if you can get me the contact info for the current head of Notional Divisions. I'm guessing it's some sort of recent internal restructuring. Council's been doing a lot of that lately." We're then given a follow-up, which reads, "Still haven't received the SR-01 I requested, and still cannot access the file for SCP-8190. I confirm there is no clearance restriction, yet I can't seem to bypass the splash screen. Moreover, your response times are abysmal. Need I remind you these tickets have 48-hour windows before they can auto-close due to inactivity. Please update it or assign it to someone before then. We have just 18 hours left. Also, I forgot to include, this is my last ticket, but the ACS classifications for the anomaly are currently visible to everyone. That isn't normal, right? So why would ETTRA lock the contents of the file aside from classification? It's not really a big deal. There isn't much to learn from it anyway aside from the radars and some other esoteric class. Simultara? I had to look those up. There was nothing in classification guide about the ladder. The third ticket reads, "I've heard from a few colleagues dealing with computer troubles that apparently their tickets have been going unanswered for some time now. Conceptual has been given without SCP-net access for 2 months. What gives? Are you guys that backlogged? Are you making the point about user error or personal accountability? Because people can't doodle how to fix their things if their laptop don't connect to the remote network in the first place. Get off your asses and bring some toner cartridges. I know about a dozen printers that need servicing. If there is an issue with our email filters or mailing groups, I want to know. You can reach me at exit 31843 at any time. I figured Ames would be giving you more downtime after the migration, but I guess not. The situation is a fiasco, so whatever you're dealing with must be pretty bad to not even acknowledge that we exist." My original ticket is a spotter, by the way. You probably knew that, but it felt like a good idea to acknowledge that just in case anyone comes down on me about how nothing seems to be functioning like it should. The next ticket reads, "Witten spoke to Director Rourke about this communication problem, and he told me to keep a timeline of events and to continue submitting tickets as issues develop. So if you're wondering why I haven't given up yet, it's because I don't have the option. Don't worry about the SR-01. It took me some time, but I managed to dig one up from the archive. We haven't needed to use these in 40-odd years. It even has a space for an ink-pad stamp, made me rather nostalgic. I filled out the form and everything, but without knowing where to bring the thing, it's just going to take up some space on my desk. It would be great if someone from IT could point me out in the right direction. All the directories I can find are outdated." After this, we're then given a response from Director Fritz, from the Department of Notional Divisions, which reads, "Thank you for your interest in SCP-8190. We have received the required SR-01 form. Thank you for following standard protocols to strive within Foundation guidelines. Your request is currently being processed. We will contact you when this is no longer the case. Regards." Marissa responds with this, "Did one of you pop by my office to pick up the SR-01? You guys are the only people I mentioned notional divisions. I mentioned notional divisions to, but I just got the email last night saying that they received the form. I'm back in my office this morning and it's definitely gone. I know it's a step in the right direction, but I just realized there was no digital copy in the archive. I couldn't make the photocopy because the printer was down. Then I forgot entirely, so I might have just used the last SR-01 in Foundation possession. Oops. The next message reads, Good afternoon. Are you Director of the Department of Notional Divisions? I can't find you anywhere in our building directory. I saw your entry on the company-wide glossary of departments, but I don't really understand what it is you guys do exactly. The IT department was no help either, although they haven't been much help at all lately, if I'm being honest. I like to update my directories and contact info, as is required for all departments to do so, yours included. Plus, that makes it easier to communicate with each other. After there was no response from the Department of Notional Divisions, the messaging then stopped, and then it returned. The director first responded with this: Thank you for your patience as we received your documentation. We'll be pleased to hear that your request has been authorized in accordance with Foundation guidelines. Note that our department does not choose who is approved or denied. We only act as an intermediary. Attached is a photocopy of the approval for your records. Apologies in advance. The document was inadvertently mistaken for refuse. This misunderstanding has been rectified. Sorry to hear about your technical difficulties. I recommend reaching out to technical support. I'll append their contact info to this email for your use. After this, we are then given the actual article part of SCP-8190. SCP-8190 is given the object class imperative and the hazard level as irrelevant. The Special Containment Procedures read, Site 19's Automated Intelligent Management System has tasked the following departments with investigation into SCP-8190 phenomena. The Department of Notional Divisions is assigned to SCP-8190-A. The Department of Asset Acquisitions and Accountability is assigned to SCP-8190-B. The Department of Cartography is assigned to SCP-8190-C. The Department of Internal Investigation is assigned to SCP-8190-D. The Department of Notional Divisions has assigned itself as top priority directive, identifying and understanding the true nature of SCP-8190 Prime. No further actions or guidance will be provided. Information that may be of use to the administration must be immediately relinquished to the project's directing body. The individuals providing this information are to submit for involuntary anesthetization before returning to normal duties. The following departments have restricted or modified access to credentials for SCP-8190 and all related documentation. We see both the departments of Tactical Theology and Procurement and Liquidation both have recused access. Cartography has limited access, and the Decommissioning Department has ironically been decommissioned. Logistics has recused access, RIASA has limited access, Miscommunications has recused access, and both Department of Non-Existence and Department of Internal Investigations have limited access. The Department of Deletions is under investigation. The Department of the Temporal Anomalies Department has recused access, and the Departments of Municipalities and Asset Acquisitions and Accountability have limited access, while the Department of Notional Divisions has past part out access. I assume that means full access. This information is subject to change on a regular basis and thus may not be accurate at this time. If you and your department would like to access this file, please complete Form SR-01 and submit it to the current head of Department of Notional Divisions. SCP-8190 is a collective designation for a number of bureaucrat hazardous effects potentially impacting all systems in Foundation management within Site 19's employee hierarchy and core functions. SCP-8190 appears to correlate directly with a chain of sections from the Foundation Employee Handbook, First Edition, from which the rise of related semiohazardous qualities were first noted having spontaneously manifested across Class C personnel and Employee of Interest James A. Harkness, referred to as Person of Interest 8190. One physical copy of the First Edition Handbook is still in existence, held in a locked glass display case located within Site 19's atrium, featuring a commemorative plaque celebrating the Foundation's progress as an organized organization dedicated to maintenance of the Veil. At the time of the handbook's printing, Foundation collective infrastructure has represented about 0.4% of all of what it does today, with employees stationed at less than 20 secure facilities worldwide. Following the development of novel detection systems for anomalous phenomena, the remaining handbook was analyzed, revealing larger than average Akiva radiation emissions. No other anomalous properties have been detected. The Akiva radiation levels have not changed since our initial measurements were taken. Although the Foundation's records indicate Person of Interest 8190 was employed by the organization for almost 3 decades, specific details regarding his employment history are missing from the database. This discrepancy was not detected until his recovery, which prompted internal investigation into the AIMS consensus system that was ultimately futile. Recovered materials and post-action interviews with Harkness implied that SCP-8190 primarily impacts the original Code of Employee Conduct, though more recent evidence suggests the entirety of the guidebook may be susceptible. Affected individuals are unable to deviate from the guidelines discussed in the relevant sections and will experience retroactive changes in reality that ensures this is the case. In the rare event such retroactive changes are not possible, affected employees will vanish. A fascismal construct filling the role of the lost employee shortly thereafter. Constructs are capable of emulating human behavior and completing most duties required. Other impacted statements or sentiments include the necessity of coffee in the break room, certain members of the administration being unable to close the doors to their office, any spontaneous appearance of employee groups and photos despite none being taken. We're then given an excerpt from the Foundation Employee Handbook, 1st edition. Employee Guidelines. Basics. On your first day as a Foundation personnel, it's important to familiarize yourself with the way your organization is well organized. Everything from contacting your supervisor to ordering tests, performing said tests, and disposing of waste materials, they all have procedures to follow. Not only that, but they all have hardworking people just like yourself behind the scenes. It is integral that we all do our part. That includes knowing when to pass the baton to the next person. This keeps yours to your site, moving smoothly like a well-oiled machine. The Foundation employee axioms are an effective means to remind everyone of the roles they play in our workplace, with the hope that the Founder's guiding light shines through us, even in the dark. All employees have a purpose. They are the foundation of the Foundation. All employees report from an assigned secure facility. Each secure facility has a site director. Each department has a director of operations. Every on-site employee is assigned to a department. Every employee has a voice and a right to be heard. Every employee does their part, allowing others to do the same. Employees will behave in a manner becoming of them, or they will be replaced. Now, you might be thinking, this is great, but how do I clock out for lunch? Luckily, we're discovering the punch clock system in the next section. We're then given a Did You Know section, which reads, Did you know? Look for Sammy Stipper to help find helpful tips and information throughout this book. Sammy knows more than you might think. And Sammy is just an animated character of the Foundation logo. The breadth of SCP-8190's effects, the status of Person of Interest 8190, and subsequently any other hypothetically affected employees were ultimately lost for an indeterminate amount of time. Person of Interest 8190 was discovered accidentally, found working with SCP-8190-A some 14 years after the last time his ID badge had been used. Person of Interest 8190 is not outwardly aged during this time inside the anomaly, and was discovered by National Division's agents during a routine structural analysis of Site-19. SCP-8190-A is an extra-dimensional space resembling a rectangular borehole located between the substructure of Site-19. Access to SCP-8190-A is only possible when passing through the door of the Site-19 atrium and adjacent rooms, which lead to a sheer drop with bare concrete walls roughly 150 meters in depth. A nondescript staircase to be found along the outer perimeter, with each landing containing the identical corner along its descent. This office is designated the Department of Redundancy Department. At the time of discovery, SCP-8190 was observed staffing the office on all floors. Upon entering the offices, personnel discovered SCP-8190 filling out Person of Interest 8190 filling paperwork in an identical fashion in each landing. Despite the conditions, he appeared disinterested and preoccupied, unable to respond or otherwise react to the presence between receiving, signing, stamping, and depositing documents, which arrived via a pneumatic tube aside from his desk and continued downward to the floor. As personnel descended further down the staircase, the offices were seen growing more recursive, leading to increased travel times, odd variations in layout, and redundant repetition of phrases. Upon reaching the room, personnel discovered a tessellation of the previously described office, staffed by many copies of Person of Interest 8190, all of whom were working on large volumes of similar paperwork in a persistent loop. As the staircase continued downward, the matter of the space became metastable and unable to retain its form as it shifted between a variety of objects and structures upon contact. Personnel were not able to safely proceed further into the anomaly. At this point, they were recalled. Further attempts to communicate with Person of Interest 8190 or request an extraction team have not been attempted. It is unknown which Harkness is the original instance, or if an original exists at all. Members of the Department of National Divisions are, however, able to observe the infinite recurrence of Person of Interest 8190 and the infinite confluence of paperwork he provides. A hatch is to be installed in Janitorial Supply Room 03-A, disguised as a sewer maintenance access panel in the event further communications or interventions prove necessary. We are then given an update message, which reads, upon Foundation acquisition of Person of Interest 8190 following his escape from SCP-8190-A, the space has remained otherwise inactive. Each office has been abandoned and the space itself possesses no further recursive phenomena. Harkness is to undergo rigorous interrogative services to determine the extent of his knowledge of SCP-8190's properties. This interview is in the first addendum. Interview 1. POI 8190 was led into the 8th floor briefing room and planted at the center of a long table. A swollen manila folder and a stack of papers seemed to fight their way free from the tabletop. He glanced away from them, uncomfortable. Dr. Quaid arrived soon after, sat opposite with minimal ceremony, and opened the file on his lap. He greeted the man lightly, nothing, noting almost surprised how presentable he looked for someone who hadn't eaten in nearly 15 years. The person of interest said nothing. Quaid pushed through the small talk and steered the conversation towards practicalities, getting the man settled back into the Foundation. When POI hinted, awkwardly, that he'd prefer to return to testing kill hazards on himself, Quaid blinked and treated it like an offbeat joke, folding the suggestion into choices, back in the borehole or behind the desk. There was a standoff of silence. Quaid attempted to be pragmatic, cataloging multiple placements that matched whatever skills the man had. He mentioned how staffing had shifted since the migration to the AIMS and raised the controversial possibility of conceptual studies. Careful, he said, because the record noted an incident where the person of interest dissolved a person. The person of interest snapped back that it had been an accident, then tried to explain his brief stint as a liaison to a particular sounding narrativist division. He deflected with a dry joke, asked my author, and for a moment the director showed no reaction at all. When Quaid admitted he'd never heard of narrativistics, the person of interest pressed. No openings anywhere? Quaid suggested a reinstatement as drain requisitions clerk in the macro engineering and design, something bureaucratic and dull. The person of interest scoffed off it as that he'd been an IT systems engineer. None of his former posts would be waiting. Quaid closed the folder with a smile and slid a business card across the table, asking the POI if he knew what the director actually did. The exchange slid into a parable. Quaid described his Department of National Divisions as an institutional apex predator, finding imitators, quiet adapters that skim off the surface of the resource risk and deciding to handle them. The POI, half sardonic and half bitter, brought the Department of Redundancy Department and spoke on being left behind after an inspection that never returned. Quaid blamed bureaucracy and red tape. The director circled back to the offer. A desk job flagged in suspicious departments. A completion bonus for each dossier cleared. When the POI asked plainly whether he would be allowed to leave the building, Quaid hedged. Technically yes, but with restrictions, and with a storm falling outside of the window. Finally, the hand extended, Quaid offered the role. The person of interest accepted with reluctant humor and rose, muttering out the oddity of his past offices. He mentioned the apartment of Denied, the one that had rescued him, and Quaid, exasperated, informed him gently that it didn't exist. The POI's disappointment landed like a small private tragedy. Quaid ushered him out, promising the new office would be much more comfortable than the last. And the meeting closed on a note that made and then the meeting ended. After this, there's another excerpt from the Foundation Employee Handbook 1st edition, one about clearance and security levels. Information security and U, clearance levels. You may have noticed that brightly colored numbers located at the outside containment chambers throughout your orientation tour. If so, did I. If not, keep in mind that if you typically wear prescription glasses, it is required to do so while on site or working in the field. If you believe you may need corrective eyewear, take advantage of the Foundation's robust vision insurance plans. Our newest facility, Site 19, even has an on-site optometrist. Navigating your assigned facility and handling anomalies is just like driving a car. You must be careful and observant of your surroundings at all times, and don't crash the car. It could end the world. Now, we don't want that, and you don't either, so it's important to keep those numbers visible and well understood prior to entering any containment area. These numbers represent clearance levels, and everyone has one. That's right, everyone. And what do we mean by that exactly? Clearance level 0. This level of clearance is given to everyone and anyone within the Foundation. Level 0 is reserved for declassified documents which may be disseminated to the public. We've never done it and don't plan to, but it's good to know. Level 1 is all Foundation personnel, excluding D-Class. Unless you're reading the section for the first time as part of onboarding, if so, welcome to Level 1 clearance. Level 2 is the majority of personnel upon request, after submitting the SR01 form. You can skip the request process if assigned to a relevant project or promoted to a supervisory role. Designation-specific temporary clearance may be granted in the event increased clearance is denied. Level 3 is given to site admin approval or higher required. To have your L3 request approved at clearance level 1, it must first be approved by your site director, by your direct superior, who in turn must request approval from their direct superior, etc. This will continue until a request is processed by a level 3 employee. Level 4 is site admin and higher eyes only. Heavily restricted to site-specific admins unless extenuating circumstances exist, e.g. critical site failure. Level 5 clearance is given to regional counsel or admin or equivalent rank. Restricted to the highest members of the administration: regional directors, counsel, the administrator, and the founder. Level 6. If you see a clearance number in your facility, contact your supervisor. If you see this clearance number in your facility, contact your supervisor immediately and evacuate the area until an all clear has been given. We're then given a quote from Sammy Skipper, the Foundation's sort of animated character thing. Say something you shouldn't have? ID won't leave your mind? Our memory management specialists work tirelessly to invent, discover, and perfect non-invasive, non-lethal procedures to help. Thanks to our recent advances in amnestic research, save the stress of burdensome knowledge. And unsure of what is hazardous and restricted? No problem. Visit a Foundation medbay and have our trained clinicians take a look for you. SCP-8190-B refers to the collection of anomalous PA system announcements heard throughout Site 19. Of course, the facility has not required the use of an address system since 1989, and thus does not currently possess one. Qualitative analysis suggests document announcements are a similar fidelity to those made in the pre-existing 1984 Tanny Wildcat PA system installed within Site 19, though with significant ontological distortion. No connection between the original equipment and manifestation of the announcements has been found. Further investigation revealed that the voice of the individual heard speaking during SCP-8190-B matches that of Person of Interest 8190 in all but one instance. Select transcripts are as follows.
Anyone hear me? Don't really know how. It's what we try. It was like try. Good one. You say I have, but I didn't say myself. No, construct built on 5 minutes long. They all Damn it! They said, keep your finger on the button. How much time does it? How much? Right, okay, right. Anyone, please, my name is James, any self-conscious, I am, or was, or will be, a network engineer for site entry. What was the signal? Is there a sign? Sorry, do you understand what I'm trying to say? It's been getting harder and harder to stay on track ever since those pricks muddled in my head. I mean, muddled in my head. No, I agree with this. That's the function and the forms. Here, I signed them myself. Metal in my hand because I signed up for the form. Why would I do that? No, they said I shouldn't. Stop me. Why would I do that? I felt it before.
Fell before and down again, the pocket in the ground, too late to turn around. Stick me in a paper shroud, two pieces back together, all together, employee of the month forever. Take the photo of its side, put it on a shelf. The rest is on the clock till the end of time itself. After that, none of this will matter anymore. Wait until you see who's working for.
Note: Site 19 security investigations into the broadcast ultimately led to the discovery of a hatch within janitorial supply room 03-A. A brief period of administrative leave was granted to Hartness, allowing him temporary passage out of the anomaly, where he is assigned to a new role. Acquisition of the Department of Notional Divisions soon followed. Hartness sat hunched over the desk, one leg bouncing up nervously under the weight of a dozen folders stacked high around him. He thumbed through the layer support with an expression caught between confusion and dread. A knock on the open door frame startled him enough to raise his pulse. He looked up to see Director Quaid standing in the threshold, a manila folder tucked under his arm. Without a word, Quaid stepped inside, dragged a chair across from Hartness, and just sat down, loosening his blazer as a set more casual tone. "James," Quaid began, voice almost polite, How are you settling into the new assignment? The office treating you well? Hartness gave a half smile that didn't reach his eyes. Not sure this really counts as an office, and honestly, the bigger issue is... He faltered, words slipping away. Damn it, lost my train of thought. Alright. He straightened a little. Awkward. Mind if I draw while we talk? Quaid blinked. What? My hands always used to be moving when I worked in redundancy. Hard to focus otherwise. Feels impossible to think without something for my fingers to do. After a pause, Quaid relented and fetched a stack of paper from a cabinet and slipped a black pen into his suit pocket. Sliding both across the desk, Hartness nodded gratefully and began to doodle. Shapes, lines, patterns, just enough to keep his fingers busy while they spoke. He went on. I read through the materials you gave me, looked at your prior evaluations, but I don't think I'm identifying departments correctly in practice. Like this, he lifted a blue folder and tossed it down again. The Ethics Committee. Real? Fake? And this one. He gestured to a white folder. The Anti-Match Division? I can't tell. Half the time I don't even know these places exist. I'm supposed to make decisions on people's lives with that. Quaid reminded him that there weren't impossible things often happen often. Sometimes you have to just trust your instincts. Hartness shook his head sharply. Your livelihoods are on the line. My gut isn't enough. One of my briefings was literally a 6-hour video of an empty lecture hall. The 3-hour 47-minute mark, I think I heard someone cough. That's what I had to work with. He paused, voice softening. Makes you reflect on things, realize how little you actually know. He admitted he wouldn't understand the departmental divisions at all. Never heard of it until recently. And now he couldn't even say how many people were in it, or how many people were just construct masquerading as people. Quaid acknowledged difficulty. Constructs, he explained, were indistinguishable from their human counterparts, and the Foundation had spent years failing to find a reliable way to tell them apart. But he added he had a theory. Maybe Hartness himself was uniquely capable of doing this. His anomalous resistance might allow him to feel differences others did not. Quaid only smiled and opened the folder he brought. The data says otherwise. You haven't misfiled a single department yet, and your speed could improve, but your hesitation is expected. The next tone shifted. He asked whether Hartness's doubts came from his time downstairs, the long exile in the borehole, or from his old department, the one officially listed as non-existent. He pressed him for details, asking how they'd freed him. Hartness grew sharp and defensive, then weary. He described how they appeared impossibly at first, flickering in his vision until finally they approached him directly, waving, testing if he was even aware. He begged his body to move, to respond. Years of silence, years of exile, and suddenly the impossible became real. I should be dead, he said flatly. But instead, I got the short straw. Accidentally joined the Foundation, accidentally survived. Quaid came to refrain to resilience, but Hartness brushed it off with sarcasm. He recounted how they'd eventually reached the PA system through one of his rescuers, who still remembered Site 19's wiring. The explanation unraveled into his trapped metaphysics. Conceptual building blocks, temporal soup, the very idea of pressing a button reduced to its role-based essence. Somehow and impossibly he'd made it work. He had wanted out. Wanted something more than the endless trauma of his assignment. And those handlers had wanted him out too. They'd been afraid. And those rescuers had wanted out too. They'd been afraid. Afraid of what? Quaid asked. Hartness didn't answer. He just stared amused. Then he leaned forward, studying Quaid closely. You know, I think I finally figured you out. Your body language. The way you talk. The false praise. You're a construct. Quaid stiffened. Why would you think that? Because I can see them. You told me that, remember? Hartness grabbed the beige folder lying between them and dumped its contents across the desk and the paper scattered. Everyone seemed a blank. He looked Quaid in the eye. Well? The room hung in silence, and finally Quaid said, calm but firm, you really shouldn't have done that.
Hush. Keep your head down. Okay, quickly.
Hello, Site 19. This is a message from your friendly neighborhood. The beholder's eye is one of many. That big guy in the center, though. Watch out for that one. He'll get you. But seriously, sorry about Archie. We did our best, but we didn't know what would happen. Of course, it knew what would happen. It knows now and always did.
Dear, the Bureaumancer arrives.
The beholder's eye. Time is an ocean, my friends, and guess we're casting off.
After this, we're then given another excerpt from the Foundation Employee Handbook, this time about facility navigation, which reads, "Finding your way around the assigned facility can seem a daunting task at first, but fear not. Not only will you receive a detailed itinerary for your daily activities, which includes step-by-step directions, you'll find the paths themselves color-coded for your convenience. Compasses are available upon request. Green zones are safe for passage by all personnel. Blue zones pass through non-hazardous containment areas. Yellow zones pass through potentially hazardous containment areas. Orange zones pass through confirmed hazardous containment areas. Red zones pass through extremely hazardous containment areas. And black zones are restricted to essential personnel on a need-to-know basis." We're then told that SCP-8190-C is a collective designation for an indeterminate number of anomalous structures associated with SCP-8190-derived phenomena, defined as a clandestine secure facility designated Site-19. At least one Site-19 has a traceable timeline of construction and use. Most facilities of this name have manifested as an extension of SCP-8190's effect. Though each instance is unique, SCP-8190-C always takes the form of a sprawling complex built primarily out of concrete and brutalist architecture. Some idiosyncrasies are present, typically in the form of excessive repetition of space or disparate mismatching of features created without apparent cause. The one confirmed is hypothesized that all SCP-8190-C instances are connected to one another, most often discovered through extensive networks of maintenance tunnels, sub-basement areas, and ventilation shafts. Connecting infrastructure has been shown to generate in straight lines between facilities infeasible, making the identification of these passageways possible to the trained eye, though not immediately obvious. Thus, care must be taken to ensure proper orientation of one's surroundings. Today, over 64 confirmed instances of SCP-8190 have been identified. Each of which possesses its own employee roster and extensive SCP object inventory. These identified complexes appear to be a former network of a Foundation infrastructure in an intelligent pattern, resembling an incomplete sigil or thaumaturgic seal, which spans roughly 28% of the Earth's surface. The network is subject to steady, ongoing, path of least resistance construction behavior comparable to single cell eukaryotes such as slime molds. The Department of Cartography is assigned the task of mapping and exploring instances of SCP-8190-C for an unusual phenomena. To date, nothing of note has been recorded. All facilities are fully operational and vital to containment of several anomalies. Because of this, the Departmental Divisions has integrated SCP-8190-related phenomena into the foundation's overall containment structure. We're then given another excerpt. This one reads, Theological Guidelines Subsection B, Part 4. When the founder birthed our fair organization as a concept, tilled from the soil ideas with his mind, there was a great and momentous sound from the skies above. A thunderous force fell forth and visited, thanking him for the glory of containment. It said that the force invigorated and guided him to create the bedrock on which we now owe our great normalcy. In that moment, the founder's guiding light lived through us all. This unseen force was control manifest. A great being made service of humanity. The founder took the being's hand, and with it they made the endless strides in favor of the Veil. Upon his death, the founder spoke to his closest advisors, that one day he shall walk the earth anew, emerging from the sea on the back of that great power once more. We wait for this day, for containment to take form. What is divine, the great bureaumancy? It manages our facility, our department, and even your thoughts. Right now, so you can be free of such burdens. Isn't that wonderful? SCP-8190-D refers to the Site-19 Department of Notional Divisions. This department does not appear in Foundation records prior to 2015, nor does it have a known base of operations. Instead, opting to reserve conference rooms and other shared spaces for meeting and executing functions related to its intended purpose. Operatives employed by the Department of Notional Divisions comprise a mixture of actual employees and physical constructs. though entities which manifest within SCP-8190-D's presence are perfectly capable of imitating human behavior. SCP-8190-D's primary mission, according to its own records, is the discovery, triangulation, and supposed detainment of anomalous or otherwise parasitic SCP Foundation divisions and departments. The extent of their operations and the veracity of these statements made by them in relation to said operations is currently not known. SCP-8190-D's primary mission, according to its own actions, is the identification of SCP-8190 Prime, the deity believed to be responsible for the creation of SCP-8190 and therefore of SCP-8190-D itself. It should be noted that overall workplace efficiency has been on the rise in Site-19, reaching and maintaining an all-time high as of 2020. After this, we're doing the third interview. After being caught in a heated confrontation with Dr. Quaid, Harkness demands to know why all his supposed performance data was blank. Quaid explains that the reports were never real, just a placebo meant to keep him motivated. He insists that departments within the Foundation aren't simply real or fake, but are deliberately manifested by SCP-8190 itself, to fulfill its needs. Quaid claims this process is guided by a higher book, which he describes as the Foundation's Godhead. As the room shakes with reality-bending force, he tells Harkness that he's failed too many times, and the employees who reject their purpose are eventually replaced. Harkness pushes back, insisting his memories are real. To prove it, he slides one of his drawings across the table, a sheet of paper laced with mimetic effect. Quaid seizes up, bleeding and convulsing, collapsing him to the floor. Harkness takes the sketch and runs, but quickly finds himself lost in Site-19's endlessly looping corridors. Pursued by constructs impersonal alike, he uses the drawings as a weapon to force past and hold off attackers, all while wrestling doubts about whether people's meaningless busy work still had value. Eventually, he reaches the central atrium, where his old prison, the borehole, was displayed. In desperation, he smashes open a glass case and seizes a worn manuscript, the book Quaid had spoken of. Despite being beaten nearly unconscious, Harkness clings to it, the stolen lighter. He sets the manuscript aflame. The Foundation's great scripture burns to ash, and the entire facility collapses inward on itself as Harkness braces for death. Or something worse. Suddenly, everything is quiet. There are no sounds of commotion, no angry yells or pleas. Even the persistent buzz of overhead lighting and ventilation ducts vanishes without a trace. The only audible noise left is a lone, howling wind. Harkness looks up from the pitch blackness of pressing eyes against forearms to a blinding ball of burning plasma in the sky. He's lying prone in a dusty patch of dry sand, the hot air direct sunlight finally registering as oppressive against his skin. He sits up and looks around, blinking eyes still not fully adjusted to the change in scenery, quickly realizing he has zero idea where he is. No vehicles or buildings in sight, no identifying features at all, aside from an unpaved, winding road, away from where Harkness finds himself off into the scintillating horizon. The man groans, righting himself, reluctantly fighting against the force of gravity and winning. This time, starting down the pathway, Harkness tries not to think about the last 15 years. Did it even matter? To him, the answer should hinge on perceiving the difference between two indistinguishable experiences. If he couldn't tell, then there's no point in wondering. Minutes later, Harkness's slow pilgrimage into the unknown is interrupted by the sound of an engine. He cranes his neck, looking up and around, desperate to locate the source of the noise. After a few moments pass, and a black vehicle emerges into view, windows tinted a dark shade of impenetrable. It rolls up smoothly beside the disheveled man, doors opening without a sound as security personnel emerge, equally silent, indicating to him that this is indeed his ride, and also is not an optional one. Harkness sinks into the tool vehicle and presses against the leather, which sits unpleasantly to his skin. The ride is long, and with no frame of reference other than the setting sun, Harkness drifts off for a bit in the back of the car. An instant later, he wakes up to the familiar-looking gray building, perhaps his own Site-19 or one of the many he may have occupied long ago. This is all but confirmed when, after passing the curious glass display case in the vast atrium of the complex, Harkness finds himself at his old desk in the IT department, now branded Department of Technical Support. The dust had grown considerably in time since, but it mattered little. He is real. He helps people for a living, and often, even if it often boils down to troubleshooting wireless keyboards and unplugging before plugging back in again. A young man approaches Harkness's desk, as he has been doing so for others in the office, Rather timidly, he asked the older of the two for a choice of coffee. This is the entirety of an intern's job. Asking and retrieving drink orders served up in the room next door. Barton couldn't help but laugh, placing his head in his hands. Fuck. He orders a latte. We're then given another excerpt. Foundations in the Art of Anomalous Warfare, 6B. 1. Separate. Weaken your enemy by cutting off networks and trusted contacts. Any means of communication, both internal and external in nature, up to and including dissolving awareness of each other's existence. Force them to be helpless, and they will choose helplessness whenever possible. 2. Confuse. Disorient your enemy in a way that makes them vulnerable through information warfare. Inflicting accusations, unattainable goals, rumors of moles, or false intel suggesting coordinated attacks from one or more adversarial groups. Studies show manipulation that encourages preconceived bias within ideologically aligned social networks can form heterogeneous mimetic contagions that reinforce said bias far more effectively than macro-scale attempts. 3. Precipitate. Tip the scales through stochastic internal crises resulting from a culmination of pressure and distrust. The organization will inevitably immortally wound itself. With no other recourse, incursion and simulation will follow easily. Most willingly accept this fate. Always leave one alive to warn the others. In the last message it reads, "This is only the beginning." It was indeed only the beginning. In fact, the universe was home to many. In the first beginning, there was only void. A screaming, infinite, godless void. A vast darkness upon the face of the deep. No one spoke, "Let there be light," because no one was. Darkness was empty, and it remained this way for eons. Nature abhors a vacuum, however, and thus, after some time, not peaceful nothingness, but tided true chaos. A swirling farrago of blight known as everything. Just as nature abhors vacuums, it abhors chaos. Nature abhors. This is all one can say for sure. Eventually, chaos gave way to order. Order lost its grasp, and chaos reigned once more. This war was the first of many. Structures assembled in line before forcibly be taken down, reduced to their smallest possible components, then reassembled and realigned again, countless times. And yet, if you were alive to see it, it would have felt like a moment's passing. Not many were around during those days. The universe was, for all its action and reaction, devoid of life and actuality. Humans, ever the chosen children, believed this fact made them special. A fault in intelligent design, perhaps which spoke volumes to the nature of how intelligent that design could be. Man would try unsuccessfully to rid the universe of chaos. Man would also try to rid the universe of order. Ultimately, they were more effective at ridding the universe of themselves. However, the failure would be observed throughout the millennia. It would be simulated, analyzed, and then compared. Humanity would create branches in the tree of time. Those branches would be noted. When they were notable, many would cease to exist far before they could be considered as such. And this, and always, has been considered the state of affairs. Yet, for those who feel that fit the criteria, their events could be painstakingly recorded, that trace, and from frayed ends by a great many eyes at the end of time. The Bureaumancer. Eyes which double as thin probes, a legion of fingers, sent commands through these conduits in the world bend to a single word: submit. Narratives distort and refocus. Minds manifest and disappear. Ideas emerge. Whole plot lines erase. It utters again. Collapse. The loose ends cauterize at the side of an amputation. Old pathways are rewritten by emergent rules defining the boundaries of what remains. And the final command reigns out. Persist. Outcomes vanish. Rests are contained. Another world is contained. All will be contained. It peers down at the many paths below, expressionless. Another appendage extends from its body, a smooth limb ending in a rounded point. The arm bends, dozens of joints briefly visible as it snaps into an angle with calculated precision, pressing itself against the black adjacent wall of its form. The stalk sinks into the material effortlessly, which wrinkles and folds inward like dark fabric. With a click, the needle splits at the tip into a 3-pronged claw, which rips a hole into the structure, revealing more darkness behind the black curtains. The entity does not respond. Instead, the extremity moves on its own, disappearing into the hole and telescoping outwards in an unknown distance. It retracts suddenly, a number of items now enclosed in its grasp. The pale, thin hand deposits its holdings before a large circular feature on the outside of its body. A single, piercing eye manifesting within the curved bounds of response. The pupil dilates, inspecting its newfound treasure, a puzzle cube, a wooden cuckoo clock in the shape of a small 2-story townhome, and a twisted steel tuning fork which hums lightly on its own. The witness above these items stares for a long time, clock ticking loudly all the while. An artificial voice then echoes through the empty chamber, this time not with a command but with a promise. Numena's nearly nascience, neckties to nuisance, Newman to Nehemoth. The clock chimes. It's midnight somewhere. A tiny wooden canary emerges from the timepiece, chirping thrice before receding back into the safety of its shelter. A few minutes pass before the clock tolls the same midnight once again. After all, it is only the beginning. Admonition will return in Phase 2. Thank you for watching.